Welcome to Decades of Horror, the classic era.
I thought you might like to see my trophy room. I'm sure you will find it interesting.
This is episode 103, recorded July 4th, 2021.
Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Jeff Mohr. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss the monsters, spirits, psychos, and villains that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history. Decades of Horror, the classic era, is partnering with the Classic Sci-Fi Movie Channel. The channel launch it's already out there, right? And they're making even improvements as we go along. Lots of good stuff on there. And you can watch our podcast on that channel for a reasonable subscription fee. Available on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, etc., etc., etc. All right. With me this week are my incredible co-hosts, Whitney Collazo, an accomplished artist, makeup artist, and writer. Whitney, how are you?
I'm all right. How about you?
I'm good. You look very relaxed today.
That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be
doing
that. And I'm in a different room. I'm in a sun.
Yeah, I see that. We have light.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Also with us is Daphne, the awesome, stupendous, and she's likable as hell. Daphne, how you doing?
I'm doing real good, thank you. It's not 103 degrees, so that makes me really happy.
That's good.
Yeah.
For anybody listening, we were supposed to do this last week, and for some reason, Daphne, without air conditioning, didn't want to do it when it was 100 degrees.
Well, I had the supersonic fans going. I don't know if you guys can
oh, you have like, God, what do they call those?
Yeah.
Never mind.
I had two pretty good oscillating fans,
okay.
But they were at the super turbo speed, so it was loud.
Also with us is Joseph Perry, contributing writer to Gruesome Magazine and contributing writer to The Scariest Things, When It Was Cool, Horror Fuel, and Ghastly Grinning websites, Phantom of the Movies Videoscope Magazine, The Drive-In Asylum Zine, and Diabolique Magazine, and co-host of the Uphill Both Ways podcast.
Is this where I say hello?
How you doing?
I was waiting. There we are. I was waiting for my cue. I'm doing well, thank you. Monsoon season started here 2 days ago. I got drenched, but I dried off, and I'm ready for our podcast today.
All right. Well, on this podcast, we start with some basic details about the film, and then we'll get into first impressions and wander wherever the discussion may take us. Our topic this week is The Most Dangerous Game from 1932. Schoedsack and Irving Pitchell. Written by James Ashmore Creelman, who did the screenplay, from the award-winning story by Richard Connell. Cast includes Joel McCrea, Faye, Leslie Banks, Robert Armstrong, Noble Johnson, and I left Steve Clementi off. Production company was Marion C. Cooper and Ernest Schoedsack, distributed by RKO Radio Pictures. Filming location was on the coast of California, San Pedro, Rancho Palos Verdes, Culver City at the RKO Studios, Long Beach, and Redondo Beach. Release date was September 16th, 1932. The budget, $218,000, $869, so about $219,000. Domestic box office, once again, it kind of depends where you look, and I think, sometimes some sources do theater rentals, some do attendees and average ticket prices and stuff like that, but I saw 443,000. I saw 966,000, and I saw 800,000 on Ultimate Movie Rankings. The synopsis for this puppy is a psychotic big game hunter deliberately strands a luxury yacht on a remote island where he begins to hunt its passengers for sport. We seem to be on this psychotic thing here.
Mm-hmm.
We had last time, we had the psychotic escaped convict, I think. Psychotic big game hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Quick look at so the picture here was in the what did they call that? Fog Hollow. The swamps of Fog Hollow with Joel McCrea and Faye running along. There's a lot of nice images in this film. So a couple of posters. I think the bottom one is the one I see the most dangerous game. It has that sort of colorful look of a lot of posters of the early 30s. And then a landscaped one, the most dangerous game. I kind of like this top one here that has like a map of the island on it.
Oh, wow.
And a great big long kind of tagline on it. And it might be in our taglines. Then came these two to Zaroff's Lonely Isle. I think it is a tagline. I'll wait till then. But anyway, and the one below has some, I don't know. Those people at the top are, I guess one of them might be a head. One of them is in the jar. I don't know who the other two are. They don't look like they were in the movie to me.
I love this poster, though.
Yeah.
They may have been
the bottom one.
Yeah, the bottom one. So great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although it does give
another
pretty
one.
much all the surprises away,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to get the rear ends in the seats one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
The best. I love it. All right. Also known as Hounds of Zaroff, and in German, Graf Zaroff, Genie des Bösen, Genius of Evil.
Mhm.
I don't know. And then we do have a few taglines. Joseph, are you up to it today?
I think so. Only 3. That's going to be an easy task. The finest specimen I ever killed, as we just saw on the poster. Fascinating, strange, and terrible is the story of Zaroff, who hunted men like animals for a sporting thrill. And then the one you alluded to, Jeff. Then came these two to Zaroff's Lonely Isle to face the fate of others who had gone before them. Fascinating, strange, and terrible is their story of adventure on the island of the man who hunted men.
The face. It did it for me.
Yeah. Well, there's certain. Reminds me of that one Frankenstein quote that was the man who invented the man who told the invented man to kill other men. Since you're up there, Joseph, how
I
would you
am
like
now.
to start us off with your first impressions?
Well, my first impressions were, I saw this, a long time ago for the first time, and have revisited a few times, and most recently for our podcast. And I think it's very well paced, pretty lean and mean. And of course, many viewers, including yours truly, will have seen some variation of this story because it's been redone so many times and in so many different ways that when we watch this, it will probably not be the first time we've been exposed to the story. Like, side note, quite honestly, the first I remember ever seeing a Most Dangerous Game type of story was the episode of Gilligan's Island, where the hunter came onto the island and hunted Gilligan as a kid. So that just goes to show how deeply entrenched into popular culture this story is. So getting back to this version of the film, I think it's, as I said, really well paced. We get some great acting, some wonderful light and shadow play. And it's, even for as long ago as it was filmed, it still holds up well for suspense and action. And I think we get to see Faye Wray act a bit more than, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen King Kong, so I guess maybe I shouldn't make that statement. But if somebody else wants to back it up or say that I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear that. But she does a great job here. And as we mentioned right before we started recording, in the original short story, we don't have her character. So I think they did a nice job with adding her character in there too, giving our hero someone to play against and have some chemistry with, but also to add some more peril to the story too, because it was a short story and they needed to obviously pad it out to the length of a admittedly shorter length feature film. So it's great, and I'll leave it at that for now. We'll discuss more details later, and let's hear what everybody else thought.
Cool. Okay. So Whitney, how about this?
So,
have you seen this before, or what are your first
No, I don't think I've seen this before. And I'm glad that I finally got the chance to, because I remember the story. I remember reading it when I was in 5th grade, and that was a pretty intense story that was impactful, just because, like Joseph said, the main character, he's basically alone. He doesn't have the female counterpart. He doesn't have anyone to play that chemistry with. So to know that this guy is captive, held from Zaroff, this crazy game hunter who basically says, he can, if he can get away, and as he knows he's gonna have to be hunted or whatever, that he's in this scenario in this whole film, and well, actually in the story, from what I remember in the actual story, though, he was alone on that island trying to figure out how to outsmart this game hunter. And seeing this play out in the film was really cool for me, but also it made me realize and refresh, like, hey, wait, I don't remember a woman playing right next to him in this. So that was kind of cool, and I'm glad that Joseph spoke on that.
Yeah. Daphne, how about you? Had you seen this before?
Nope, I hadn't seen it before. I've definitely heard of the story, and I didn't know that it was based on I guess I didn't really even think about the origins, because I've just always known the story. I must have seen it in different shows or movies and stuff. So that was cool to hear that it was based on a short story. So it's the first time I saw it. I really liked it. It was really cozy feeling, as far as like the music. It definitely made me feel like I was watching one of my beloved Saturday film matinee things at home, with the music, the dun 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 dun, that kind of stuff, and the awesome. I loved the Zaroff, the villain. I loved the Boy Scout main character, and I really liked the female character too. It was a lot of fun, and it was. Is it only an hour? It doesn't seem. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it moves right through, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, I had seen this before. I can't tell you exactly when, but it's always great to revisit these, and it had been a long time. I love this. I kind of like Joel McCrea is one of those guys that's he's he's just a likable guy, you know.
Mhm.
And on most of the films that he plays in, he seems that way. Although there are some ones where he's a little more aggressive, I guess. But I like this too, and I like especially like Faye Wray. I will talk about some of the other actors, but I'm a big fan of Noble Johnson's. The music was awesome, and the cinematography. There was a couple of scenes that just cracked me up. Like there's that one scene where I forget exactly. I think Zaroff is telling Faye Wray's character, is it Eve?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's time to go to bed. She's going up the stairs, and her husband says something, or not her husband, her brother, Robert Armstrong, says something like, "Oh, I'll just stay down here. The Count will take care of me." And he's drunk, and the Count says, "I will indeed." And then she looks at him, and then this big, long zoom shot zooms in on Zaroff's eyes, and his eyes are bugging out. And then we go back. Then we go back to Faye Wray, and then the crescendo goes on. I mean, it's really exaggerated, but I loved it. So anyway, yeah, and there's some neat little scenes too. I mean, they do a lot of things. Joel McCrea is a big game hunter, and so he knows the tricks and tries to mislead him on all these different things. So anyway, I thought it was a fun movie, and it's a fun cast, and it's nice to watch the other characters sometimes. There's a couple times where Zaroff is giving people instructions, and they're nodding like gleefully, and then he yells at them, and then they run off. But anyway, I thought that was fun.
I loved all the zoom-ins. I loved all the zoom-ins.
No, I'm sorry, the what?
The zoom-ins or the pan-ins or whatever.
Right.
It was so good.
That was mostly zooms.
Exactly.
Yeah. It
When
reminds
they're
me
running.
of Second City TV, the 3D House of Stewardesses. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember
right.
that one or not.
I do.
They would always go, That was their 3D effect. Okay, well, let's get into some of the cast, etc. So, I don't know if anybody else had ever heard of him, but I hadn't heard of Irving Pitchell. He directed several films, but he was also an actor. So one of the ones he directed was Destination Moon, science fiction film from, I don't remember the exact year on that one. 2 years in the making. But what I thought was kind of also sort of funny is said he's also an actor. He played this character in Dracula's Daughter.
Oh, okay.
Who I believe
was, I've seen that. Yeah,
like a henchman. Yeah, I need to go pick that up. But again, so he's not above looking silly, but so. And then the other director, which is interesting, is Ernest B. Schoedsack, who is, who partnered with Marion Cooper for King Kong and Son of Kong, and then went on to do some others, Dr. Cyclops, Mighty Joe Young. But he was kind of part of that, I believe. He was part of the Cooper group that traveled the world on expeditions and filmed them. And so that when they're filming King Kong, the character played by Robert Armstrong is sort of a takeoff of Cooper's character. So anyway, these guys are not new to the genre. And this was actually, I believe, shot while they were shooting King Kong. Anybody read anything about that?
I read something unofficial about that.
Yeah, me too. I think I had read that they had shared they used some of the sets from King Kong. Yeah. Yeah,
I expected that one place where they run across the chasm on the log. I kept thinking Kong was going to come out and shake it, and roll them off or something. But yeah, most of the standing sets from King Kong were used in making this film, including the gate, which was eventually burned down in the burning of Atlanta sequence of Gone with the Wind. So they were shot at the same time. Kong was released later, maybe because of stop motion animation. I don't know. Anyway, I find that interesting, and that we have so many people in this that are together. We've got Ernest B. Schoedsack, we've got Robert Armstrong, we've got Faye Wray, we've got Noble Johnson. I think the producers and a lot of the technical crew were the same people. So any comments about the...
Well, I was going to say quickly that if they didn't shoot both films entirely side by side, they at least shot, what we were talking about, Jeff, a lot of the jungle scenes, including that log is so obviously the one that got shaken in King Kong. So I was waiting for them to, shake it or do something with it. I guess it was too big because they could have cut themselves off from the naughty guy, the cad, the hunter, but Zarkov. But anyway, that would have ruined the movie, I guess. And they would have been a 45-minute film.
Well, I'm kind of thinking that was probably a matte painting, and then in King Kong, it was like a stick that they were running through the size thing. I don't know. I'm sure any special effects folks out there that will contradict me. So any comments about the direction or just overall look, cinematography, etc.?
Like I said before, it's lean and mean. It's 62 minutes, something like that, including credits. And very well-paced, suspenseful direction. And it looks great. It looks, I think it looks really wonderful. And if they did indeed share some of the budget or some of the sets with King Kong, there's another reason why they were able to make, the running through the jungle, almost got a Creedence Clearwater Revival reference in there.
I was hearing it when they were doing that. I started singing that to myself.
Okay. So anyway, those are my quick thoughts on that. I think it looks great, and they build the tension really well. We meet our main characters. Actually, we get some action and suspense right off the bat with the boat wreck, the yacht wreck. If they knew the lights were wrong, why did they follow it? That was great.
I thought really that was great. Very well done. I love the explosion and the stuff tumbling through the air and then sprinkling down on the water. That was. I mean, it when they first showed the boat, I remember thinking, well, that's a miniature. But then when they did the blow up, the explosion, I was thinking, boy, that's really well done.
Yeah.
And I love how. Oh, sorry, Joseph. Go ahead. I was just going to say I love.
You said go ahead, so I went ahead.
Yeah.
It's just one sentence or so. I think that was an exciting thing to add in the first act, and to get us to set up for the meeting the main characters as soon as we were on the island proper. And then after that, once the hunt started, boom, it was action all the way. Daphne,
I was basically just agreeing with you. I loved the blow up, and I also thought it was I thought, oh, okay, that's a miniature, but how it blew up, how fast it went down. I loved that the captain just kind of made a few allusions, like, oh, if the water gets to the boiling, whatever, and then you could just imagine the guys down there boiling to death, like in the boiling hot water, the screams and the stuff. And of course there was that, he got me, that was always really good. And I loved it. And I thought it was really good to introduce the character of Bob, because you get to see a little bit of his kind of where he's coming from. Definitely. I really enjoyed that beginning portion and the boat going down. And as for the directing, I thought it was great. Like everything Joseph was saying with the short time, I loved just the atmosphere that was built. I love how the use of the staircase where they'd have Zarkov down below and then whoever he was talking about kind of in the back listening, you know, kind of being talked about, and the zoom ins, like we mentioned. It was the light and dark. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Sorry to interrupt you with the door knocker, but I was just like, that should have been your first warning.
Exactly.
The door knocker is like, I don't know, is that supposed to be Poseidon, or I don't know, arrow in his chest and holding a partially clad woman, and
right.
to knock on the door, you have to grab the woman's body and go.
Right.
Well,
And he had
later
it
on,
3 times. They knock it
Later
down
on-
like 3 times.
yeah. Well, during the opening credits, right? That's our first.
Yeah.
Later, do they show like a longer shot of that, and it's maybe a satyr or something like that?
I think so. They have a carpet.
Could be.
They have a big carpet hanging above the staircase.
Yes,
along
yes.
the wall, or maybe it's a painting, but I thought it was a carpet that shows that scene. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it looks more like a satyr than yeah, that's what kind of like some sort of monster or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't
Whitney?
remember an arrow in the satyr story, but it's been a while.
Was that Jeff?
Comments? Anything on the other?
Oh, well, I mean, I liked in the beginning with Daphne had said with Bob, his character being, of course, like most characters should have an introduction and everything. But I think, doesn't he start at some point talking about being a hunter when he's with those guys in that ship? So
Yes.
and that's a good way to talk about himself and his hobby or things in that nature, because he's about to become what he is.
Right.
Hunted.
Well, I sort of got the
Yeah.
impression that they either hired him for a guide or they were on the way back from an expedition.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he's looking at pictures they took, and they're teasing the doctor for not being the great hunter, or they're being so brave
Right.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a
and-
mere man of medicine.
I also liked how it set up the I'll always be a hunter. Crash, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, like towards after all of that, with that whole crash and with that demolition there of seeing that in the water with that ship or whatever, it was pretty crazy to see, even with like the shark in the water, and then you see the 2 guys and the one just kind of going with it. He's like, "Oh, it got me." So it's like you just kind of give up. There's no fight. So
Yeah.
that was
And
amusing.
maybe a not very painful bite. Too,
Yeah, I don't know.
Gently
Yeah.
tugging at him.
That's a
Oh,
little
God.
bit. I mean, the way the captain got nailed by the shark was the way we played
Exactly.
Cowboys or War when I was a kid.
Right.
Oh, he
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I'm
Exactly.
playing with my
Water.
nephews with that. Oh, I got me.
Yes, exactly. But they had real shark footage, which came from another movie they
Yeah.
had just shot.
Oh.
So, anyway, yeah, I like the line that the doctor has something about, "I'll tell you what I was thinking," you know, and I don't remember exactly how it went. Something about the man, the civilized, and the animal that kills to stay alive is savage. Something along that lines, which is kind of neat. But Bob's not having any of it.
He'll always be the hunter. So what's the problem?
Right.
Of that first scene when he gets on the island, well, when he gets to the castle or the ruins, and he opens the door, and there's that slow kind of creak of the door behind him, and the guy stepping out.
Oh yeah.
I just love that too. That kind of again, it's just that old horror movie stuff that just feels so good.
Right. So as Jeff said, your first clue should have been the door knocker. Exactly. And then when the door creaks open and nobody's in view, but you step in anyway, that's probably another strike 2 right there. But
right.
Exactly.
And then the guy shuts the door behind you and locks it.
Yeah, right.
And stands there grinning at you. Okay.
And I don't know if it was in this part, but the music was so perfect and it went with like every time Bob would take 2 steps, I don't know if it was the horns or maybe it was the bass, it would be like dun dun, and then they'd have some other music and then he would take 2 stops, bum bum, and it was waiting for Scooby-Doo or someone to jump out from somewhere.
Well, I liked how the Zaroff character too sort of made fun of stuff that Bob said, where at one point he said, "Oh, I lug a gun around a little," and he goes, "I ran a gun around a little."
Oh yeah, he mocked.
Yeah,
he wasn't just mean to him, but which guy was it? Was it the guy that shut and locked the door on him, or was it someone else? I'm sorry, but even Zaroff he even insulted his own guys. He's like, "Oh, he's just dumb."
Yeah.
Ivan, the bearded one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the directing too. Is I think Leslie Banks was this whole thing. The second time I watched it now today, I didn't notice it much, but when I rewatched it like a week ago, he was so melodramatic about everything, and he'd hold his hand up, and then when he wanted him to go, he'd go, like have some kind of flourish with his hand that was just ridiculous, and then his accent just over exaggerated everything. Anyway, it was fun.
He was a Cossack after all.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true. And I really want to know if the words that he shouted at his henchmen were actually Russian or if he was just gobbledygook.
Right.
Okay. Well, our star here was Joel McCrea, and this is so I did have a quote. I didn't write it down, but I think it was Katharine Hepburn said he was a far better actor than what he got credit for. That she would have liked to have seen him be a lot bigger name, but he was in this top picture was he's in Sullivan's Travels with Veronica Lake, and that I believe that was a Best Picture winner. And the next one is sort of a Jacques Tourneur vanity project. This was like the movie Jacques Tourneur really wanted to make, and he made deals so he could make this. The Stars Are My Crown, I believe, which is a very strange sort of religious-based Western where Joel McCrea plays a preacher, and I think maybe it's been a while since I watched it, an ex-gunfighter, but everybody's wanting him to put his guns on, and he won't do it. And manages to find other ways to get things done. It's a little sappy and maybe a little hard to believe, but it does a pretty good job. And it's really kind of sits aside along Tourneur's other stuff to me. Anyway, have you ever seen that, Joseph?
No, and I don't even think I'd heard of it until just now.
Yeah. Well, it was when we were reading about Tourneur for the I don't know, either Curse of the Demon or one of the Luton films that I read about his thoughts on this. So McCrea also, I had to throw this one in, and I forget the name of it, Gunfight at Dodge City with Julie Adams from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to feel really stupid because I forgot the title of it, but it's a Sam Peckinpah movie, and both he and Randolph Scott kind of came out of retirement to do this as these aging cowboys, and they had never done a picture before, and apparently it was a lot of fun. Ride the High Country, that's it. Pretty well-known flick, and beautiful cinematography, and then Mariette Hartley is in it. It's one of her earlier things. So
I've definitely heard of it. I haven't seen it, but I know the title.
It's worth a watch. Out of all of the, he did a bunch of westerns.
Had Peckinpah started his violent phase by this point?
This is getting there, but it's nothing like Wild Bunch or anything like that.
Okay. Okay.
But it's very highly ranked. I just wanted to make sure I didn't dream that. Sometimes I get mixed up. Never. But he did a bunch of, he was Hitchcock, he did Foreign Correspondent, 1940 for Hitchcock. He did Union Pacific for Cecil B. DeMille, directed that with Barbara Stanwyck. Sullivan's Travels was Preston Sturgis. Stars in My Crown was Tournier. Wichita was another Western he did that was a Tournier Western. Stranger on Horseback, 3 Tournier films. So,
wow,
Jacques liked him.
Yeah.
And he was in a series, short-lived series. So, and he was in 3 Best Oscar Picture nominees. So, Foreign Correspondent, The More the Merrier, and Dead End. So, anyway, what do you think of him? I mean, do you guys have anything in your head when you think of Joel McCrea? Did you recognize him? I mean, he was pretty much done by mid-60s. He did a couple things later on, but very, very little.
I didn't recognize him. But I thought he did a really good job in this movie. And I kind of joked about him being kind of a Boy Scout, but I totally bought it. Even just some of his, the way he held his body, like when he was angry, he would hold his arms at his sides, even when he was moving, like when he was coming towards Zaroff. He was just so, and he would use the words like the swellest bunch of guys and you rat and all this stuff. And but and it was very endearing. And I think he really was a believable character.
Right.
And I liked him a lot. Actually, he had this kind of worldliness to him, but he was also kind of just a boy. I loved when Faye Ray was trying to signal him, and it was just like, she's looking at him and he's just like, oh, okay, whatever, and doesn't get any of the messages she's trying to send him about danger.
Yeah. She's like,
I know.
danger.
Yeah.
And then look out the
thought
window.
it was good.
Little dog. Anybody else? Comments on Joel McCrea?
Well, I liked what Daphne was saying about calling him a Boy Scout, because even in him saying like he'll always be a hunter and everything, you see those skills that I like as a hunter, or with that sort of survivalist of whatever. I'm not knocking Boy Scouts at all.
No.
It's just the things that I'm like, whatever. No, it's not like that. Sorry, the words are just kind of coming out here. I'm sorry, but no, like just him setting up the traps, trying to get away from Zaroff, and then having Faye with him, her character, and showing her and how he's going to set up, because he has to have her help him set things up. And I like how he has that initiative care for her, because like there's one point with the first trap that he's setting up and she's about to go towards, and he's like, no, if you do that, then that tree's going to fall on you or something. So just knowing how attentive he is to the surroundings, and then with her, that's got to be, for a character, that I feel like that speaks volumes in that environment. So that's how I saw him.
You both did such a great job. I don't have too much to add to that, except that I had seen Joel McCrea here and there, but Jeff, as you kind of mentioned, he never really stuck in my head as like a leading man type person, but more like, I've seen him here, I've seen him there, and but here he was really good in everything that Whitney and Daphne had mentioned. So I think he was a great fit for this role. And yeah, he had that kind of aw shucks gee whiz characterization about him, even though he was supposed to be, you know, this danger is my middle name, big game hunter.
Yeah.
But he, you know, he was definitely calm and clear thinking while he and Faye Wray were running through the jungle, and he never gave the idea that she was going to slow him down. I think she even mentioned, Eve mentioned, you know, you can do better without me, or you have a chance without me, but he would not give up on her. Right. So yeah, McCrea did a fine job here. It is a little funny that he's so straight-laced, but I think they really wanted, you know, to play the protagonist and antagonist off each other with a very clear division.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I say that kind of jokingly, but I still loved his character, and I thought that they did a really good job of that. And even with his acting, I really bought when he said, you know, now I know what the inevitable, of course he's going to say, well, I know what it's like being hunted now, but it's like, I really believed that he got it. Like he got it, you know? But yeah.
So I just noticed this, which I know I read it before, but I forgot. He went to the same high school. He went to high school with Jacques Tourneur.
Oh.
Tourneur moved over here with his father when he was like 9 years old. So I guess maybe it's not surprising they made 3 movies together.
Right.
And then Katharine Hepburn was actually a friend of his and his wife, who he was married to for 57 years. She was an actress, Frances D. And that she thought he was one of the best actors she had worked with. And she thought that McCrea should have been ranked alongside Spencer Tracy or Humphrey Bogart.
Oh, wow.
And I think he really was that guy. He was that nice kind of straight arrow guy. He owned a ranch and was like, you know, the gentleman cowboy. He was actually, he probably was one of the better horsemen of the people that played in Westerns, because he had a ranch and that's what he did. You know, he rode horses all the time. So anyway.
I'd really like to go and see some of his Westerns, especially that one you were talking about when it's a little bit older, because I would like to see him acting in other roles. I thought he was intriguing.
Yeah, I agree. I've always kind of liked him, and it's like I don't seek him out, but I kind of keep an eye out, you know, and something I'd like to watch. So Faye Wray, and I don't know, when you search images of Faye Wray, the first thing that comes up is like 50 different pictures of her in scantily clothed and King Kong and a couple other movies around there. So I was trying to find some other stuff. I kind of like that top picture because she looks.
I love it.
It's very intelligent and sly looking kind of.
Yeah.
So she was also in the next shot is from Mystery of the Wax Museum, which it's a Price's film. House of Wax is sort of a remake of, and that's her as a wax figure. I mean, she's playing a wax figure that's modeled on herself, so she's like standing still, but that's really her. And then the next one is, oh shoot, is that Dr. X, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel dumb that I forgot the title
sure.
of that film already. And that's also Lionel Atwill. So she made a couple of pictures with Lionel Atwill at the Proc. I'm just looking really quick where I collected those. Did I write that down? Oh, no, that's The Vampire Bat.
Oh.
Which is another one she was in right around that time. So And then the bottom one was a TV show she was in where she played Natalie Wood's mother.
Oh, wow.
In the early 50s. I think
Wow.
the title of that is The Pride of the Family.
Huh.
That was a 1-season deal, but the pictures I've seen of it, she seemed to be like kind of the draw. And her husband was obviously, or seemed obviously to me, older than her, but anyway. So
Whitney, look, there's one of those cursed Boy Scouts.
Oh, no.
Darn you.
always involved with Boy Scouts.
Well,
Anyway,
I don't know about that.
So one of the
That's
things I
funny.
noticed about her, there was a couple scenes like that where, so there's a great scene where Zaroff shoots the arrow into their little hidey hole. God,
Okay.
that was impressive. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They set up the deadfall and then they go and hide.
Oh,
in the
yeah,
yacht
right.
in the little cave, and he shoots the arrow in there, and it's like a 3D movie. The arrow comes
Mhm.
right at you, and it looked real. Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
It looks good. Yeah.
it looked really good.
That was one
but
where he
then-
promised the next one wouldn't miss, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And then it sticks here, and then Faye Ray goes, and she gets
Right.
the patented Faye Ray wide-eyed look, and then she kind of freezes like that for a second. Like it seemed to be like she was making sure they got the shot, you know. And they just,
Uh-huh.
but anyway, I thought that was great, and she's great. She's got that. She's just perfect at doing that.
Mhm.
You know, the looming monster, King Kong, or the
Yeah.
she's
The
just
hand wringing, some sort of hand, like when she's thinking about something, she's wringing her hands, and yeah.
So she basically spends most of the movie running around in her nightgown or robe or whatever that night house thing was she was wearing. It wasn't really a dress, right? That was what she put on.
Huh.
It was
Or what
more
did
like
you
a
think?
gown.
I thought it was a gown.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or that's what it looked like. And then you just kind of see it getting torn and tattered along
Mhm.
the way.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know I know at first she was wearing a gown, but you're right. After she went to bed, I did find it kind of strange that she's still in her gown, but maybe it was some sort of fancy nightgown or something.
Well, she says she's been running around trying to find her brother,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and she can't find him anywhere, and they need to go look for him. So I guess I thought it looked sort of flimsy and, like maybe it was a dressing gown or I don't know, but it wasn't real substantial.
No.
It was beautiful. She looked fantastic.
Oh, it was. And she does great in it. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
I don't,
Oh, no.
no.
I didn't think it at all. It's a beautiful gown. It's absolutely beautiful.
I thought it was interesting.
I was definitely wondering how she was running in those shoes, but I often think that when I'm watching a
Yes.
movie. But she did great. She did.
Any comments about her performance? Anything beyond the fact that I think she's great. I like her.
Well,
Yeah, she's great, and her looks of fear are, as you said, Jeff, perfect fits for a film like this. Whitney.
Well, for someone that is, expressive with her fear, I was actually sort of surprised for her character after seeing Zaroff come down with the body of her brother, and she just ran right up to him and she confronted him in her, way. It's just I wasn't sure what to expect from that, but obviously there was the talk back and forth between Bob when he came out and everything, because he was trying to be defensive about her, and then of course, sure enough, like when he's telling him, what he wants Bob to do, and hunt for him and this and that, but then he's gonna have to turn around and work against him, like he's gonna have to survive. He's gonna have to be the hunted, and then he says that he doesn't mind him taking her with him because Zareth's like, well, I'll just take her back anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just crazy because I didn't expect it that way for her character. Because like Joseph and I said, we remember in the story she didn't exist in the original story, and I thought, okay, is he just gonna kill her right now? After she says, you did this to my brother. I was just sort of surprised. I don't know. I wasn't sure what to make of what was gonna happen to her, but it was nice to see the playoff of her eventually being in the majority of the story in this film, and having that chemistry with McCrea.
I thought that I agree. And I was really surprised too when she came running out of the shadows and confronted him, and just the way that she kind of had stuff figured out from pretty much from the beginning, and she was kind of talk to this person, and I mean she was kind of taking charge. She's walking around the house by herself looking for her brother, and
he ain't picking up on anything, that's for sure. So she figures it all out. She checks on the boat, she figures all that stuff out. So
well, and it's interesting to hear you talk about how that she wasn't a character in the book, so I can see it even being more like, what's going to happen? How is this character going to be used? Is she going to make it to the end? Yeah, I thought she was really interesting.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and when she runs out, you're right, because I remember being surprised because I thought they're hiding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when he shows up, that she runs out. I'm like, I wasn't sure why they were hiding, but she runs out, and then it's a very timed scene because she runs right up to him, pauses, says something, another pause, says another thing, and raises her arms up, and then starts beating on his chest and gives another line. It's very dramatic, very emotional.
Yeah. I mean, especially while in hiding, they're seeing the heads of these other guys in jars or whatever.
Oh, yeah. And they didn't. She didn't scream.
Right. Usually, a character. I don't know. It was just different for me in this one, just to see something like this play out for a character like that, just to kind of run out and do that after seeing these things. If I'm seeing these things, I'm gonna stay hiding.
Apologize for my finger twitches, as I've always said, my grandkids call me Grandpa Shaky. Every once in a while, my finger twitches if it's on. All right, so Leslie Banks. This is an interesting guy because I thought he was being, really melodramatic. I need to look at the same thing again, make sure I get my. So the first one there, and I got on this path after I watched this movie. I started watching these other old movies because I was getting all these connections. So Chamber of Horrors is a film from 1940 that has Leslie Banks in it, and he actually kind of plays a similar character. It's not a Most Dangerous Game kind of thing, but he's got the goatee and he's sort of melodramatic. The bottom shot here with Peter Lorre is in the original Hitchcock movie, The Man Who Knew Too Much. And the next one up is, I believe, Jamaica Inn, which is another Hitchcock. Yes. So all the people in this cast have, except Faye Wray's been in some Alfred Hitchcock television shows, but I don't know, everybody, the other leads had all been in Hitchcock movies.
Yeah, well, and every single one of those pictures, he looks different. Like, I don't necessarily, I don't know that I would know it was the same. I mean, a couple of them, they look similar if you know it's him, but he is able to change his features or his face pretty well.
Yeah. So the way he plays in this movie, and I'm assuming he was directed that way, is a little difficult. You have to kind of be following it. Yeah, so he does that overact. He's. I wouldn't argue with somebody if they said he was overacting. Mm-hmm. Let me put it that way. But I think it's intentional. And like I said, one time when I watched it, it really stuck out. Another time when I watched it, it didn't. So I guess it was just the mood I was in, or I took him for being part of that character, being very melodramatic, I guess.
Well, he certainly wanted us to know that his character was an evil one.
Yes.
Yeah.
An evil Cossack at that.
I couldn't even do what he was. I was trying to imitate his hand motions, and I couldn't even do it. I don't know. He would shout out the servant's name and then hold his hand up and then go.
Right.
Every time I try to do it, I feel like I'm doing Walk Like an Egyptian or something.
Yeah, right.
All right. So now you guys have to hear my lecture here, I guess. But we've talked about this guy in every one of these movies. Noble Johnson he's like a chameleon. You talk about not recognizing Leslie Banks. So there's Noble Johnson. There's a couple of shots at the top. Mm-hmm. One as a younger man, one a little bit older. And then the guy on the left, the second one down, I tried to figure out what movie that was from, but I couldn't. It shows up every time somebody talks about Noble Johnson, but they never identify the movie. But there is a place where I read where he was friends with Lon Chaney, and you could see that influence there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
The lowest one is from Ghostbreakers, which is I think that's a Bob Hope film. Do I have that correct? Yeah.
I like the makeup.
Yeah, and that's Paulette Goddard with him. So, and he's got more of those than you would think. So just to keep on with his look here, this Indian chief is from She Wore a Yellow Ribbon.
Oh, wow.
The one on the right is he played Friday in a silent version of Robinson Crusoe in 1922, where he's dressed up like kind of like a native or in loincloth. Then the next one, kind of in the middle, is Murder at the Rue Morgue with Bela Lugosi. Bottom left is Moby Dick from 1930. He played Quig. Quite the muscular character, and I'm sorry, but I forget the name of this. But there he's playing like a British soldier or something, or an official. And then for The Most Dangerous Game, there he is at the top, and that was another funny part where Zaroff tells him to smile.
And then he looks like
smile.
Oliver Reed.
It's great.
Yeah. But the other movie that I got into was RKO. And this seems really weird to me, but they did a remake of this film in 1945. And it was directed by Robert Wise, which is what made me kind of want to watch it. As one of his early films. He did a couple of Luton films and then went on to become Oscar-winning director. But Noble Johnson is also in that, and he plays the same instead of Ivan. So in these middle two pictures are him as the character in that. But by 1945, I believe he was 60 years old, and he's like running across this rocky area in this movie. Which is, I was really impressive. The guy was in phenomenal shape. And then the bottom picture there is from King Kong, where he plays the native chief. And then the other guy with him is Steve Clemento, who plays the knife-throwing servant in Most Dangerous Game.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I was reading more about him. I'd read about him before. He started a race pictures company, production company in the teens that didn't last for very long. But he went on to play. He played like almost every ethnicity and nationality that you can think of. But anyway, I think he's an impressive character. He's got like 140 credits.
Mm-hmm.
He's got such an ambiguous look about him, so it doesn't really surprise me that he's played various.
Yeah, he
roles.
plays indigenous people.
Yes.
He plays Hispanics. He plays. Anyway, so I just love Faye. It's amazing how many movies he's in that I've watched, and you don't even notice it because he doesn't look the same. You know, he's just. You're never going to recognize him from King Kong, I don't think,
No.
when you watch something else. But all right,
I liked I liked his makeup in this movie.
Yes. It was.
Mhm.
It reminded me of the Island of Lost Souls a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I was thinking now the hair that we had talked
Yeah.
about with the hair. Yeah.
well, he was, and he looked like a guy named Ivan, right? Ivan, the Mad Cossack. And then Tartar, the assistant that was the slave floor, Steve Clementi, or as he was billed in several movies, Steve Clemento, he actually had a knife throwing act and was really proficient at knife throwing. So it wasn't surprising that they had him throw stuff.
Yeah.
You know? Although the one time he really comes in to throw a knife, they shoot him, and it turns out to be a really anemic throw, you know. But so
Is that him towards the end, where Bob turns around and he shoots him? Is that the same guy?
that's him. Yeah.
Yeah.
When they're just getting ready to leave in the boat, they're running down the boat, and he's chasing them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So quite an iconic, almost an iconic shot too at the end of the film, where you have everything framed in this great big window.
Yeah.
With Zaroff laying there, and he just
Yeah.
melodramatically, I keep using that word,
Yeah.
rolled off the windowsill down to the
Yeah.
Knowing that his
savage by
hounds
the
are at the
dogs.
bottom.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that shot. That was a great shot.
So for our,
I love the dogs
special
too.
effects- Yeah. Well, yeah, and they were pretty vicious
Yeah.
acting. Anyway, there was some fights and things, big dogs.
Yeah, that was interesting. They're turning on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm the star here.
Well, another thing I wanted to mention, and we've talked about this before, but the fight scenes seem
yeah.
way more real and less. I mean, I know they were choreographed
Yes.
to an extent, but modern fight scenes are so choreographed.
Yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah.
these actually look like they're actually fighting.
Weapons.
A real fight is more like
Yeah.
a wrestling around and missing,
Right.
and you know.
That totally struck me too. And I feel like I don't know that I've ever seen another fight like that in a movie, or at least a recent movie, because these wide kind of, punches and just clearly going to wrestling moves, he
Right.
was just doing all these leg locks and stuff. I mean, I was like, this is really, wow.
The backbreaker,
real.
right?
The backbreaker, yeah. Complete with the of the breaking back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that fighting scene.
And
And it was like he was used to wrestling tigers or something, or these are just like how people in real life fight.
yeah, I don't know. When you're in the jungle,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything goes.
Yeah.
He was a lot better fighter than Zaroff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Zaroff was trying to impress people by using the Tartar war bow, which when he first said it, I'm like, it's like Tartar war bow? What are you talking about? And then he points out a bow. So there's people in the art department too from King Kong, and I don't know if special effects people will recognize the names, but like Mario Laranaga is just listed as a technician, but Marcel Delgado is another one, I believe, that helped with Willis O'Brien. Trying to see what other names I recognized here. According to this, Buster Crabbe was a stunt double for Joel McCrea.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting.
Would that have been pre-Tarzan or post-Tarzan?
During
Tarzan.
What? That's a good question. So
Crabbe was before Weissmuller, right? For Tarzan?
Well, yeah. So this was pre-Tarzan, but only like by a year or so.
Okay. He worked his
and
way
this
up
is the only
system, probably.
The only stunt credit he has, huh?
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. Okay. Well, any other final comments here? Closing comments about this film, or things we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about? I always think of stuff later.
Well, go ahead, Daphne.
I was just going to say, can we talk just a teeny bit about the drunk brother?
Yes. I love Robert.
We don't have to talk a lot about him, but he was both annoying and even actually occasionally funny. And I was kind of wondering, wow, why is this guy in here and what's he doing? But I ended up enjoying him.
Yeah. So he too was in King Kong, Son of Kong, Mighty Joe Young, some Alfred Hitchcock television shows, 4 Perry Mason episodes. So these guys, he was in a TV show actually called it's called State Trooper. That was on for a few years, but he was in like 28 episodes of that, so some sort of recurring character. But he's great at playing these. I mean, all right in this little 2-year period, we've got Most Dangerous Game, King Kong, and Son of Kong, and he's great in all 3 of them, I think. And he actually, I don't know, I thought he was decent as a drunk.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at the trivia and its relationship to the Hays Code and talking about also some of the people. I'm trying to look at it here again. Sorry. He's supposed to be annoying, and prohibition was still in effect, but the laws were widely ignored, and the producer was strongly critical of alcohol use. And so it's just interesting because I could see that him being really annoying, but there were a couple of times when I thought like he was clearly used as comedy relief. There was a couple of times he can make some little smart comment or something. So maybe this is interesting.
What I found interesting in the remake, A Most Dangerous Game, so 12, 13 years later, the door knocker's different. The tapestry or painting on the side of the staircase is different. It's not a nude woman at any rate. And I'm just pointing out. I don't know why the door knocker is different, other than it seems possible that because of the code change that they wouldn't use that same one. It could be they just couldn't. Somebody took it and couldn't find it. Yeah. And then the brother is in order to do some clandestine snooping in the background. So that part of the story changes. In the 1945 version. There's a few story changes and that's one of them. So that might have been too. They didn't want a guy
in the remake.
Yes.
Okay.
So everything else was pretty close to the same. But I was sitting here thinking how, postcode, they always had this idea that the bad guys couldn't come out ahead at the end. And as Daphne was talking about the drinking, it might be that you can't have the drunk come out ahead. So in this one, the drunk dies. Mm-hmm. And in the latter one, the drunk really isn't a drunk and he doesn't die. He lives. All three of them live in the remake.
Spoiler.
I don't know if that's coincidental or not, but
anyway. Who knows? It may have also been a subtle thing to have him be annoying so that when he's the first of the trio to go, viewers are gonna miss him less.
Yes. Yeah, take him.
The other two. Yeah, right. The sacrificial lamb.
Yeah. I was fine with him going down there when he wouldn't stop cackling at the end. And he was like,
"That's what I'm talking about."
Like, go. And I also saw that here that they were great. The dogs were Great Danes, but because they weren't particularly scary, they were darkened in the film and filmed at low angles. As I was trying to figure out what kind of dogs they were, at first I was like, "Are those Dobermans?" Mm-hmm. Like going with the kind of standard.
Yeah, the heads were bigger.
But he was huge. Yeah, but these
So they said
very good Danes.
Very, very good Danes.
Well, another little piece of detail was that Leslie Banks was bitten by one of the dogs.
Oh no!
Did you see that? And the dog's handler said that those dogs, her dogs, did not bite. And at some point, Banks pulled down his pants and exposed the bitten area and said, "Well, something bit me on the ass." So,
oh wow!
Oh wow!
Sounds like a good story, anyway, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh my!
So anyway, fun movie, and it has a place in history. That. So I don't have any feedback today. So I didn't fill it in here, but next up is one chosen by Chad, who we missed sorely today.
Yeah.
And hopefully he'll be back for the next episode, or we'll have to pick something else because I'm not going to do one he picked. Attack of the Crab Monsters from 1957.
He'd better be back for that one.
He better be back for that Roger Corman goodness.
Yes, right.
So
he can explain himself.
Well, it's been a while since we did a creature flick.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good old monster.
So yeah,
or creature.
1957 is correct. And this has some of our old buddies in it. Russell Johnson from Gilligan's Island, speaking of which. Ed Nelson. I know I saw another one that I had recognized too, but I don't see him here now. Oh, I think Mel Wells is in it. Anyway, Mel Wells.
Chill Wills.
Mel Wells, the guy that did Man-Eater of Hydra.
Okay,
and was in Little Shop of Horrors. Anyway, all right. So I don't have any feedback today, so we'll just end there. Make sure to stay in touch and check us out on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on a podcast, check out some of the visuals that we also provide, and please subscribe and leave comments. We will read the comments. Or you can send us emails at feedback@gruesomemagazine.com. Catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era, as only decades of horror can do it.
Or Attack of the Crab Monsters.
Thanks to all of you. Let's say good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.